All right. Let's talk about 343's handling of the Halo franchise. And
This is gonna be
from
fun.
beginning to end, which I guess hasn't ended yet.
It
But,
basically has.
It has, but it hasn't. So, they start the first one, I guess, was technically Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary was their first one.
Oh, that's actually a really interesting one to start with because a lot of people did not like that one.
Really? So, I thought it was all right. I thought the art style was okay at first, but then like whenever I play on MCC, I always play it on Classic, and that's not good.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people feel, is that it really just didn't have enough of an improvement in order to really be considered the definitive version. Not in the same way like Halo 2 Anniversary is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that
Combat Evolved
Anniversary is amazing, and then they redid all the cutscenes in like,
Yeah.
actually like that.
Yeah, Halo CE didn't really have like cutscenes though.
Well, both of them had
so.
like the same cutscenes. The old versions did. They were about the same. They were like in-game like models. They redid the Halo 2 ones completely with like cinematic cutscenes. Like it could have been
Okay,
a TV show.
That makes CE Anniversary look even worse, actually.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So the other thing I didn't like about it was the multiplayer maps. They didn't do any of the classic multiplayer maps. They put it in like Reach ones that I like never played. I didn't like them.
That's also another point.
So that was a bummer. So overall, it was like, for me, it was just cool to play the game again. But you know, if you didn't get it back then, you weren't missing out. And it's on MCC, you hardly even know it's there because you just play the classic version, the classic graphics, and then when you play multiplayer, it's obviously the classic version because they never cleaned up the old one.
Yeah, I want to give a couple of my thoughts because I'm someone who didn't play the classic Halo,
Yeah.
so I don't have like that true comparison. I've only ever played it on MCC. So going into the remaster, I guess you could call it, a lot of things kind of felt a little bit weird about it, especially coming off of my first Halo game was Halo 4, which we'll talk about after this, but a lot of the things about the remaster felt a little bit strange to me because it almost felt like the game wasn't really made to it wasn't really made in the sense of they wanted to maintain the gameplay. It more so felt like they wanted to just throw a new coat of paint on it and call it a day.
Right.
That's kind of the vibe I got from it.
Like they were ordered to make it, but like they were told they didn't have to go all out on it. It just had to look nice.
Like Halo 2 Anniversary, they went all out. They did everything for that. Halo CE feels like a bare minimum.
Well, I think that probably was the case, and it was also toward the end of the 360 lifespan that came out. I think it was 2011, which would have been the 10-year anniversary, which is I think why they did it. And then when they did Halo 2 Anniversary, that was for MCC, which was practically a system seller for the Xbox One, which is what they were going for, so they kind of had to, actually try.
Yeah, at the time, Halo 2 Anniversary was the selling point of MCC, aside from like being able to play Halo on the newest console.
Yeah, for me that was a big part of it, why I got it, but it wasn't like the only reason. Like, yeah, obviously I wanted a Halo 2 Anniversary, but it was just the fact that they were all on there. I like the fact that they weren't dropping Halo, they were bringing them all to the next console, which cannot be said for current affairs, but
I guess you could make the argument though that MCC technically is on the new console. So
I mean, yes, but the next gen of Halo is being left behind.
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
So next is Halo 4, which came out in 2012, which a lot of people thought was rushed because you had Reach in 2010. They say it broke the 3-year cycle that they had going. and then Halo 4 comes out again, rushed at the end of 360 lifespan, which I do think is a weird choice because there's obviously you would have known that
Yeah.
that the Xbox One was on its way. It's just
So-
weird. But as for the game itself, I always liked the campaign. I did think it was different. I did think it was, you know, maybe not classic Halo, but I didn't dislike it. I never had a problem with it like that. How about you?
Me, okay. As the first Halo campaign I really played, Halo 4's story set a really good precedent for like what a Halo story would be like. As for the gameplay, though, it did a very strange thing in kind of setting it so that the gameplay was a bit more drawn out and cinematic, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, the way they staged like certain action set pieces, I guess.
Things seem to be more focused on the story than the gameplay for Halo 4, which, as somebody who is like a big story person, I'm somewhat fine with, but I can definitely tell a lot of Halo fans that's not exactly what they play a Halo game for.
Yeah.
The story is just the accent to them.
But to me, it's always been the part of it because, you know, when I started playing Halo, we didn't have Xbox Live. We played on the old Xbox, so we just played the campaigns.
Yeah.
And even at the time, we only had the first one. So, like, after we played that, we played the multiplayer, like, custom, just at, like, local. And then we went and we found Halo 2 and played that campaign, played that multiplayer. Eventually got a 360 and then went from there. But...
Yep. Whole Halo story.
And then for the multiplayer, this was the first online multiplayer I ever played for any shooter or any game at all, I think. So I have a little bit of a bias towards it.
Was it the first you played for any game?
Yeah,
really?
because I got like 360 or not 360. I got the gold for one of my birthdays at the time or whatever. It was like 7th grade or whatever. And then I played, the first thing I played was Halo 4. But we had played some custom games before. And then, but I don't know, that was just the one I always liked. And I still like it. It's the one I'm best at. But I think because I started with Halo 4 and I went from there, I think it probably hurt my perception, I guess, of Halo 3 and that kind of classic gameplay. I think Halo 1 still holds up for me because I just played that so much, custom games. So that gameplay is fine.
You also probably played that campaign a lot, so it was easier as a transition into the multiplayer.
Yeah, it's about the same. That's why I think Halo 1 still has the best gameplay in the whole series because it's just, I don't know, it just flows the best. It just is the best gameplay. And then Halo 2 is wildly different. The campaign versus multiplayer gameplay.
We'll have to do a different video on Halo 2, honestly.
Yeah.
Because we both have a lot to say about that.
But just as a fact, if you play it as the campaign, it's not the same playing multiplayer because you know you go in with people. There's button combos. There's all this stuff that people know.
Yep,
and,
it's aggressively competitive.
Yeah, but anyway, Halo 4's multiplayer was pretty simplistic. It added sprint for I guess the second time because Reach had it, but Reach's was an armor ability.
It added as a default for the first time.
Yeah, it was a mainstream
core
ability.
gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, so that was divisive in the community, and it still is. Although I think Infinite did do it right and they did it well. But overall, the community was mixed on Halo 4, I would say, and its player base suffered because of it.
I do think one thing to point out with Halo 4 is that a lot of people would have been more or less lenient due to it being 343's first Halo game. So that is another point to make out, because a lot of people would have been like, oh, this isn't Bungie, they don't know how to make Halo, and other people would have been like, okay, they got some missteps at first, but let's give them a couple chances.
But that was also the point where Halo lost a lot of the casual fans, and they lost them to Call of Duty, because Halo, after Halo 3, then there was like Reach, and that was kind of like whatever, and then 4 came around and it did not convince a lot of people, so it was kind of just dropped off, and only like the hardcore really stayed behind, which is why the player base dropped so much.
Yeah.
And then it also didn't help that it was kind of like late to the 360.
I wonder if that's why Halo 4 was kind of rushed out, is because they wanted to compete with Call of Duty.
Well, that's what the gameplay would suggest. The way it plays is it's very similar to how Call of Duty plays. So that's what a lot of people would compare it to, and that's what they claim 343 tried to do, was steal an audience from Call of Duty.
Maybe they're trying to steal an audience back, because it sounds like Call of Duty might have taken.
That's what current is, because it was close. I don't know how Reach was competing, but it was like back then it was Modern Warfare 2 and Halo 3 were like the kings of 360. It's all anyone played, but it was like an even split. And then after that was like the golden era of Call of Duty. They kept coming out with like Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3 was like just non-stop hits, and Halo had to bring its best, and it didn't, so that's where it lost the people.
Honestly, you could blame Reach for a bit of that, though.
Yeah, well, I think at the time it probably was Reach's fault, just because it wasn't a main line, and Halo 4 was. So it's like, oh, Reach, or Halo 4 wouldn't have been a problem in 2012 if Reach hadn't come out in 2010, but you could look at it either way.
Yeah. Can I talk a little bit about Halo 4? Yeah. Halo 4 was my first Halo game, and that's a really interesting one to start with. I talked a little bit about the campaign, but the multiplayer, I didn't have online like you did, so my multiplayer experience was definitely a lot more just the two of us goofing off and doing stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing that always stood out to me with Halo 4 was the Forge, because
yes.
it was so expansive and easy to make maps that it became like one of my favorite things to do, was just mess around in the Forge. And I think one thing that really helped with that was just the game was so flexible in what it let you do. Yeah, it had like the budget you could have, but you could do a lot with that budget.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think I ever maxed out the budget.
Yeah, you made like 3 different versions of Skytop.
Yes, which
Classic.
is my classic custom map that hopefully we'll get a video fairly soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always thought the Forge, I tried going back and playing like Halo 3 Forge and Halo 4 Forge, but to me Halo 4 just offered the best. It had the better maps to work on, I guess, with the exception of the large one from Reach. But Halo 3 never had like a full-on sandbox map, so it was always limited. And then there was
Halo
like
4
map restrictions and stuff.
Halo 4 had multiple sandbox maps, because it had like the Impact, Forge Island, Exile, Ravine.
Yeah, but for the longest time I only knew about Forge Island, so that just shows how much content it had.
Yeah.
But it was also, I think the biggest thing for me was the ease of use. And being able to make custom games along with your custom maps was also had a lot of options for you.
The custom game, I forgot about that. That was also a pretty core part.
Well, yeah, because you would think of a game mode first, and then you would design a map around the game mode.
Yeah.
And then you would make the whole thing work together. That was the best part of it, and I don't think since then there's been really anything like that. Like for Infinite and Halo 5's Forge, I've heard they're good, but I've never really used either of them myself, but everything I've seen on them, they just look so much more complicated than 4 did. And
Yeah.
to me, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's easy to use, easy to pick up. Anyone can make anything, right? That's exactly how Halo 4 worked.
Yeah, I definitely think Halo 4's biggest strength was the innovation it brought in terms of like how it kind of bolstered the community that it was catered towards.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely part of why it's so divisive, is because Halo 4 catered to a specific part of the community and didn't cater to anyone else.
But at the same time, I would make the argument that compared to how current Halo games go, you know, looking at one in particular, they had something for everyone. They had Forge on launch. Even though Forge Island wasn't on launch, they still had Forge on launch. You could do everything on launch. Spartan Ops was there, the campaign was there, the full multiplayer. They had the DLC maps later, but even without the DLC maps, I think they had a decent amount, and most of them were good. If not, or at least serviceable, if not like great, but you know.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that Halo 4 was a very specific type of Halo game. It wasn't like the all-rounder Halo game that Halo 3 kind of was.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that were, you know, more used to Halo 3 and having that more like expansive view of what Halo was didn't really like the more streamlined direction.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's that. And then 2013 we had the Xbox One launch with MCC, which I think came in 2014 actually. I think.
Do we need to talk about MCC? Because
well, we do, because of its horrible launch state.
Yeah, that's the part I'm not sure I want to talk about, because it's so tiring talking about that.
Yeah, but it's extremely important because this was their first true misstep that really destroyed their reputation.
Strike one, you could say.
Yeah, but it was the only one that mattered, because after this, no one had faith in Halo 5, because after MCC launched in the state that it did, which is the reason most people even bought an Xbox One, then they announced Halo 5, and it was like, you know, it's probably not even going to work right on launch. You've probably heard its sales. But the only thing to really point out with MCC was that it was and still is a genius idea, and I wish more franchises would do the same with their series. Like, I think a Call of Duty MCC would be like genius.
I think part of the draw of MCC though is the campaigns, and I think that's honestly the main selling point of it, is the campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could make the argument that you could just play whatever multiplayer game you want. MCC's main draw was definitely just being able to play the campaigns, but they butchered everything on launch. And honestly, I think if MCC had an even like decent launch, we would not have gotten Halo 5 or Infinite in the state that they were.
Yeah. And then I guess I'll just talk about let's just talk about all of MCC now.
Yeah, we can just cover it now.
So I think it was 2018. Well, they like slowly added stuff and fixed it over time. But I think it was by 2018 that was when it really was at its best, because that's when they added Reach. That's when they added it to PC. I don't think it was all at once. Over time they added each game, but the whole thing eventually made it to PC. And they added a shop to it. I don't think it had the shop before, and then a battle pass that was completely free, points that you can spend on stuff.
Yeah,
and
I don't have money, by the way.
No. There, buy it.
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, it's like all the cosmetics are free. You earn everything. There's over like 1,000 different achievements to get. all this stuff. It's literally limitless content, and that's exactly what every Halo game should have. It's pretty much the perfect Halo game. I think its only flaw currently is that it doesn't have Halo 5, and there's no way to play Halo 5 on PC at all.
Yeah, but I don't think that's MCC's fault so much as it is Microsoft's fault.
Well, not that I'm blaming MCC, it is a flaw of MCC though.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So now, anything to add?
Honestly, MCC kind of is keeping the Halo community alive. If anything,
Yes.
If it wasn't for MCC, I don't think the Halo community would even exist nearly as much as it does.
At the state that we are in currently in 2023 with Halo, if we didn't have MCC, it would basically be a dead thing. And then some people are still around for Infinite, I guess, but that's not a huge seller. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not what people come for.
We have to talk about Halo 5 first, and oh boy.
Yeah, so Halo 5 now, 2015. It's the first true Halo game for the Xbox One. And little did we know it would be the only Halo game for the Xbox One.
Halo Wars 2.
Well, if you
But we won't talk about that, but
if you ask most people, Halo 5 is the only one.
yeah.
Only true Halo game because that's the genre. But Halo 5 comes out and campaign first quickly, not good. It was disappointing. It was lackluster. You wanted to play as Chief, they made you play as Locke.
There have been so many videos discussing it. It's just beating a dead horse.
Yeah, but it's important to mention that it was not liked by the community. Gameplay wise, I think it was fine. I think that generally, but it didn't matter because what you were playing. Well, I was just gonna say it didn't matter because what you're playing was so boring.
Yeah.
And it's serviceable, but then ultimately not because it's not good.
It kind of failed in every single way possible, didn't it?
Yeah. They yeah, I don't know. Well, the big problem is when you get to multiplayer, where they had bare bones content at launch, and it took them 10 months up to a year to finally get it to the state where I would call it complete.
Now and that's never a good sign.
No, it's never a good sign. Unfortunately, I would have killed to have that situation with Infinite because it's even worse, but we'll get there.
I think one of the biggest problems with Halo 5 is definitely that it tried to be too many games that weren't Halo. Like, it tried to be Overwatch, it tried to be Call of Duty, it tried to be everything.
Yeah. It was just, the other problem was it was way too competitive. It was not casual at all. It was just super, and I think that's a problem with a lot of modern games now, is no one wants to be sitting there, like, sweating every time they're playing a shooter, or whatever it is. They want to actually enjoy it. That's how it used to be. That's how it was when I played Halo 4, because I just jumped in. I was decent. I was like good. I was consistently getting like top of the leaderboard, but I never felt like I really had to try, or I had to try. Right? I tried if I wanted to. I wanted to do good.
But you were just there to have a good time.
Yeah. So
honestly, we could make a video just on obsession with difficulty in general and how it's kind of ruined a lot of games. But
yeah, that's why I always say there's a difference between challenging and frustrating.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be frustrating, you want it to be challenging. 'Cause challenging is fun, that's the whole point of games. If it's too easy, it's boring. If it's challenging, then it's fun. That's why, like, maybe an extreme example, but a lot of people like the Dark Souls games.
Yeah.
That's like the ultimate challenge, but... And then,
There was also rec packs. Do we need to talk about those?
Back when loot boxes were at the height of their popularity, if you want to say that.
Popularity.
Popularity for corporations. And then they put those in their thing, and they were essential to the newest game mode, which was Warzone, which I played maybe like one game and it was all right. I think it was worse in every way to Battlefield's Operations. If you're looking for like long game modes like that.
Once again, it was trying to be another game that wasn't Halo, right?
Yeah. But I think that we'll get to this problem when it comes to Infinite, but they don't try again with Warzone. And it's like, that's the wrong move. You need to be, even though your game mode maybe wasn't the best, it wasn't the most popular, didn't make the most money, that's when you try it again and improve on all your feedback and everything. And they just didn't, which is a common theme with all of Infinite actually, but when we get to that. But yeah, I mean Halo 5 overall is decent, I think, in its current end state.
It's decent, but it's not very Halo, I guess is the best way to put it, right?
Yeah. It's not, it wouldn't have been everyone's first choice. But so yeah, I don't know. I think that's it on Halo 5. And then And then Halo Wars 2, real quick, wasn't entirely made of 343. In fact, I think they only published it.
Yeah.
And
they had nothing to do with the game's success, really.
No.
They had a lot to do with its shortcomings, though, because it's not on PC.
So it's not on Steam. So that's the biggest problem with Halo Wars 2 is the lack of support for it. It's basically a dead game now. Not dead. It's got no developer support, even though a lot of people still play it. It's got I would argue even a bigger community right now than Infinite does.
That's kind of sad, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's not on Steam, which is hurting its players. It's only on the Microsoft or Xbox app, which isn't ideal. But I don't know. It's just it's unfortunate. It's a good game overall. Its campaign is completely flawed, in my opinion. But its gameplay is good. It's a good RTS, and it's got a lot of content. Definitely an improvement over the first one overall, but I still enjoy the first one maybe a little bit more. And then finally we get to
Halo Infinite.
Six years after Halo 5 comes out, we get Halo Infinite.
Actually, can we talk about the lead up to Halo Infinite a little bit? Because that was a very important part of the game's life.
Yeah, since 2018. I think 2018 was they initially announced Halo Infinite. And on looking back, they didn't promise a whole lot. But they didn't promise anything huge. They just promised the essentials, the bare minimum. Well,
they promised, I remember 3 things. They promised Forge, multiplayer, or not multiplayer, co-op, and then
Forge, co-op, and split screen.
Split screen, yeah.
All of which were not in the game on launch.
Yeah.
And that was a huge one.
Then there was the gameplay test or demo in, what was it, 2020, 2019?
No, it was 2020.
Yeah,
no,
where they
2021 because the multiplayer wasn't even mentioned or shown until like I think it was 6 months before the game even came out, which is unheard of for those kinds of
multiplayer
games.
game.
Yeah, it's like usually you'll hear something.
Yeah. See, and a lot of people didn't like the art style. They thought that the direction the game was going in with like the grappling hook and stuff was too Titanfall. It seems like a lot of the mistakes were being repeated, right?
Yeah, they did like the art style for Infinite more so than 4 and 5, which we forgot to mention. They changed up the way everything looked in 4. That was another part of why people weren't really drawn to it, because it looked a little unrecognizable from.
Yeah, they corrected that slightly in 5 though. So at that point, it wasn't like a huge concern. People were more concerned with the gameplay.
They doubled down on 5 because they had their rec packs. They had like 1 million armor sets that all looked like Power Rangers.
The overall art style was dialed back, but they had other problems. But that was mostly armor sets and not the overall art style.
Yeah, Halo Infinite brought it back to classic form more than the others two did. And then campaign was fine, I guess. The gameplay was good. The open world was interesting, and I don't think it was bad, but I think it was lacking is the right word to say.
I think it was very clear that they were focused on like making a specific version of what their ideal Halo would have been.
Yeah. As
an open world game, and they kind of forgot to flesh out a lot of things, and they forgot about the multiplayer.
I think the biggest what was I gonna say? I don't remember what I was gonna say, but it was just the biggest disappointment was the story, I think, and it was just a bummer to have all this, like, that was where the lead up kind of dropped off, was for the campaign. It was like, again, it was like decent, I guess, but then once you consider all the stuff that they left out that they didn't do, then it becomes really frustrating.
You know, that's something that's actually really interesting, is Halo Wars 2 made people like look forward to the campaign. Because after Halo 5, everybody was just like, this story's unsalvageable.
Yeah.
But Halo Wars 2 comes in, and it's just like, okay, this story that didn't work, we're going to make it work. Yes. And then Halo Infinite just drops it.
Story-wise, Halo Wars 2 was better than Halo 5. And that's what people were excited about, was those characters returning. None of them show up in Infinite. I guess one of them shows up, but he's not the villain, and that he should have been. They replace him with a new character that's more or less the same guy, but I guess they only did that so you could actually kill him in the end, and they didn't want you to kill Atriox.
But why wouldn't they want you to kill Atriox?
I don't know. It's like you kill the Prophet of Regret in Halo 2, but he's still alive. I don't know why you couldn't do something like that.
Well, that's because they had the Flood, so...
I guess, but he wasn't floodified yet. So... But overall, Infinite was just not really it. It was lacking. It was disappointing, and especially when it came to the multiplayer, the promise of live service that never came.
The multiplayer. How many maps?
I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. I think on launch it was like 6 or something, if even that. I played them so many times to the point where it was just wasn't good.
You know what CE had on launch?
More than 6.
Yep.
I don't know. It was just
that was 20 years ago now.
If you're gonna have a live service game, you gotta have service. It's like
you gotta have live. You gotta have it have life.
It's like if there's nothing to play, no one's gonna play it, and the same content does not count, or at least the same content would count if there was plenty of it to go around. There wasn't. It's the same problem with Modern Warfare 2, the current one. It's Gunfight. On launch, it had 4 maps. One of them was a remake, and it was worse than the previous version.
Yeah.
So. But I don't know. So it's kind of where we are now. Is if you want to play
Halo fans,
if you want to play Halo, you play MCC, and maybe you hop on Infinite.
Yeah. At least it's free.
Yes. But at the same time, the other thing we didn't talk about was the customization and progression are practically non-existent.
Yep.
So there's nothing really to grind for. That was the other problem, was besides the lackluster amount of maps that you have to play on, there was nothing to play for. There's no armor to get unless you buy the battle pass, of course, but even if you do, you get like 1 or 2 armor sets, or if you want to buy them in the store. And I still don't think they added War Master, which is my favorite armor set, so it's like, what do I care? That was the other thing that I think people, or at least looking back now, Halo 4 did very well.
Yep.
Was customization, at least progression. They even had daily, monthly, and weekly challenges, I believe.
Yep.
Stuff to do. And then I know a lot of people didn't like Spartan Ops, but it was there.
It was more content that didn't take away from the content that was already in the game.
Yeah, well,
No reason to complain there.
people didn't like it was because it replaced Firefight, and to everyone, Firefight was better. I hadn't played Firefight, so to me, Spartan Ops was fine.
I mean, I think I get where they're coming from that, but like Firefight, Spartan Ops was an extension of the story, and Firefight wasn't. It was kind of like zombies, but Halo.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, more or less. It was just the Horde mode. But
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else?
The enemy is training Jackal.
The future is currently uncertain.
There was the TV show, but we don't need to get into that. So
It's terrible, and 343 signed off on it. That's basically all I need to know.
Yeah.
So they are involved and at fault.
Yeah. So at this point, as a Halo fan, I think the best we can hope for in the future is for somebody else to take the reins.
Yes, my hope is that 343 becomes more of a publisher rather than a developer on future Halo games, kind of like Halo Wars 2.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that does not mean outsource and do contract work for your games, because that was the problem with Infinite. So they need to get... Now Microsoft owns 1 million developers now, or game studios. They need to use them. Get them making some new Halo FPS, Halo whatever. I don't care. If it has the name on it and it's good, I don't care.
Yep.
But eventually a Halo 7 or whatever they're going to do needs to happen. And it needs to happen right the first time.
Honestly, the ironic thing right now is that you could kind of equate this Halo Wars game to the state of the Halo franchise.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about this Halo Wars game. This is going horribly. But yeah.
Whatever happened to playable elites, huh?
Oh, yep. Oh, yeah, that's the other common theme with 343 is the removal, taking away more than you add. And that is never a good thing. That is not... Like, that's basically like the tagline of Infinite is everything is gone. There's no dual wielding, no playable elites, no Warzone, none of the other modes that 343 ever added. I remember one that everyone liked in 5 was Breakout, and that obviously didn't make a return, but they also ruined it before Infinite even came out. They changed it in 5, so it doesn't even play the same. So I don't know. 343. I think a lot of people like to defend 343. It's not their fault. It's Microsoft's fault. Whatever.
At some point, there's a correlation.
It's their fault. Who's the common denominator every single time?
Well, even if Microsoft was mandating them to do a bunch of these things, right? Obviously, the stuff they choose to do, there's some things in there that isn't entirely 343's control.
Yeah, well,
they didn't have to make the game play that way. They didn't have to make the maps that way.
There's no way Microsoft told them to make this balance change for this weapon and to change this part of the map or to do all this or designing maps. When it comes down to designing maps, there's no way, Microsoft had an input on that or even the number of maps. All of that comes down to that. And yes, Microsoft's the one who signed off on it, so it's also ultimately their fault. It's both of them. But I think factually, or I think most people would agree, if someone else was making Halo other than 343, we'd probably be better off. Right?
Yep. I just find it very symbolic that the second you did that, you like relocated halfway across the map and built an entirely new base.
See that?
Just thematic parallels right there.
Take
Completely
notes.
unintentional.
Take notes, 343. Do what I do. But it could also be seen as delaying the inevitable, which is unfortunate. That's the one thing I do hope does not happen, is now with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, they have like Call of Duty now, and they want to make their $70 billion back. They might
Don't turn it.
Well, they might just
Don't
ignore
turn-
Halo, and that's unfortunate.
Well,
But
okay,
yeah.
this is depressing. We should probably just end it.
Yeah, anything else? I don't know what else.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add here.
I will say I do appreciate them, the amount of stuff that they put out. I think overall with the fans, they do. I know they mess up on the games a lot, but at least they're constantly trying to put stuff out. Like I know with books and comics and all that kind of stuff, they were. I don't know if they still are, but they for a long time they were putting out a lot. So at least there was things there.
Yeah.
So there's a positive. So I don't think they're, just to sum it up, I don't think they were entirely horrible the entire lifetime of their existence and every second they've owned Halo.
It's just that their missteps were bigger than their triumphs.
I think they've made enough. They messed up enough times. It's time for someone else to have it. It's basically where I'm at and where I think a lot of other Halo fans are at.